Alright, kia ora guys. Our group is doing chapter 5, which is addressing cultural and socioeconomic diversity. We've broken it up into 3 main sections, so I'll be doing the first one, which is bilingual education. Alan will be taking the second one, which is rise of multiculturalism. Timani will do our third and final one, which is ethnicity and social class. And then at the end will just be like a little summary about what we talked about. So, I have bilingual education programs. The textbook defines bilingual programs as programs that are there to assist minority language students in gaining proficient English skills. Another definition for bilingual education programs could be the teaching of academic content in 2 different languages. So, an example of this could be, say, a family moves from Mexico into the US. Though the parents may have some English skills, the children may not have that same ability. And so bilingual education is offered to help them improve their English. The textbook really focuses on how these programs are predominantly for immigrant children entering English-run countries. I believe there's so much more to bilingual programs than people just learning English, and so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the textbook talks about 3 types of programs that they have for delivering bilingual education. And so the first is a transition program, the second maintenance, and the final one is 2-way bilingual programs. So starting off with the transition program, this is where teaching in the native language happens only until they're adequate in English. This is a rapid shift process aiming to move the individual quickly from the native language into the dominant language. This can have some difficulties because to make that shift, you don't actually have to be very good at English. You just need to be adequate, be able to get by. The second one is the maintenance program. And this one seeks to maintain native language skills for a longer period of time before phasing into English. This program sees that language is an important part of someone's cultural heritage and is a valuable foundation that improves self-identity. So this is kind of a better one because it allows the student to be in their native language for longer and to better acclimate to English, which shows kind of better outcomes as they phase into the English programs. The final one is a 2-way bilingual program. And this is where education is delivered in 2 languages. So this is done in mostly English-speaking places, where a second language is also common. So an example of this could be in Canada, where French and English is both spoken. And so a child would start their schooling in French, and as they get older, get nearer to graduation, they would learn more and more English so that by the time they graduate, they are proficient in both French and English. There are a few states in America that have actually cut bilingual programs completely, and they've done this in favour of 1-year English immersion programs. So as you can imagine, this comes with positives and negatives. A positive I thought of could be you're learning English really quickly and you're able to phase into an English world really quickly. But I also thought of the downfall that not having access to your native language and practices can really cause self-identity issues in people that are already now living in a completely different environment. So pros and cons to everything. I feel that the textbook focused predominantly on bilingual education in reference to those coming into English speaking countries from immigrant backgrounds. And of course, that's a really important aspect, but I feel that it's just as important to talk about the other side of bilingual education that happens in places where English is the predominant language, but that the Indigenous language is taught in schools to revive culture. So I have a couple here that talks about a couple programs, but first off, just saying these nations are usually colonized nations where the non-Indigenous language is the dominant, and where the Indigenous people of that place have been limited in their speaking and teaching of language, but are now looking to revive that cultural practice. So an example of this that I found was in Canada. They have lots of educational programs for First Nations people. By the sounds of it, they weren't very big programs, but that it was something that they were striving to include. Another one is Kamehameha in Hawaii, which is a really cool school. If you haven't had the chance and you're in Hawaii, I would say check it out. But something that I really love about Kamehameha is that it not only teaches children Hawaiian language, but it teaches them Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian practice, Hawaiian values. And so it's giving these kids a whole nother thing in their lives that they can learn and gain. Bilingual education in countries that have been colonized is a really powerful tool for reclaiming things that have been taken off them. I am a really proud product of an Indigenous group that fought for that right to have their language, to have that in school. So in New Zealand, we were colonised by the English, and for many years the native language was prohibited from being spoken. So in the year 1913, 90% of Māori children could speak Māori, while also speaking English. But by the year 1975, this number had dropped to only 5% of Māori children. The Māori language in every way was facing extinction, and a lot of people were very unhappy about that. And it wasn't until the 1980s that there was a huge resurgence in Te Reo Māori, where people stood up and said, you know, this isn't right, that we don't have our language, we want it back. And so in 1982, the first preschool was established, full immersion Māori, and in 1985, the first school was established. So my grandparents never learnt their language, my parents didn't either, and so when I was born, my family decided that I would enter a full immersion schooling experience so that I could be a part of a culture and a language that had been taken off them. There's a lot of debate around bilingual learning. It's often politicized and very heavily criticized. But as a product of it, I can confidently say that I have seen nothing but benefit in my life because of their decision to place me in full immersion learning. This is 3-year-old me saying hi to one of the ancestral carvings at my school. And this photo is really special to me because I was so young. And yet I knew exactly who I was culturally. And that knowledge has 100% made me a better person today. I still learned how to read and write in English at home. And at school I learned all about my ancestors. I learned how to weave, to sing, to perform, and most importantly to speak in my mother tongue. I re-established something in my family that had been gone for a really, really long time. We can have all the opinions about the politics and logistics of bilingual education, but at the root of it, I believe it gives people a deeper sense of connection to self and their culture, no matter what that language is. Language learning is a really positive skill. About half the world population is actually bilingual, employing both native language and learned languages to help them progress in life. Learning a second language or a third or a fourth all contribute to the betterment of a person. Language is not just words, but it represents whole cultures and civilizations of people. I am a huge advocate for bilingual education just because of the knowledge and empowerment it gives people.